for the majors yesterday. And don't look now, the White Sox are great. They scored twice in the 8th inning last night, beat the Twins 3-1. Chicago's 21-5 since August 16th. Best record in baseball in that span. They've got a 2-game lead in the American League Central. Meanwhile, the Marlins won the finale of their marathon 7-game series against the Phils on Monday, 6-2 the final. It was the longest regular season series in 53 years. It included 3 makeup games and 2 doubleheaders. Marlins move into second place in the National League East. Meanwhile, the Padres beat Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers 7-2 in a game between the National League's 2 top teams. In a 5-run 7th, San Diego cut their 8th straight win and cut the Dodgers' lead in the NL West to just 1.5 games. And if you're looking for baseball, tomorrow we're the place to be. Triple header. Mookie Betts and the Dodgers, Tatis and the Padres, that's 4 Eastern. Then you got Pete Alonso and the Mets against Bryce Harper and the Phils. And finally, the Diamondbacks taking on Mike Trout and the Angels. All 3 games are on ESPN and the ESPN app. And with that as the prelude, the pressure is on Dan Graziano, who's very good at this, up against Sneaky Hembo. Which NFL head coach has the longest active win streak in season openers?
It's going to have to be a guess, but I saw a note the other day that the Eagles had a very good record in season openers. And I feel like the Chiefs have started like 5-0 every year since Andy Reid's been there. So I'm going to guess Andy Reid.
He's the best. He is the best at this. No one has ever been better at anything than Dan Graziano is at this. That is a brutally tough question, and he gets it right. That is a remarkable performance by Dan Graziano. He is the Babe Ruth of Sneaky Hembo time. Okay. Meanwhile, let's take a big broad look at Week 1 and go through what I perceive to be some of the winners and losers, and we'll put them together. We'll start in the AFC North. In Big Ben's first game since Week 2 of last year, he and Mike Tomlin won their 116th game together, so he was on the upside. Baker Mayfield, meanwhile, his team scored just 6 points, so they were on the downside. Meanwhile, Belichick and Brady, very different opening days. Bills Patriots beating the Dolphins, intercepting 3 passes along the way. Tom Brady, meanwhile, struggling in his Buccaneers debut. And then Kyler Murray's real win didn't come in Week 1. It came in playing with that guy, DeAndre Hopkins, who had a career-high 14 catches for 151 yards. His former quarterback, Deshaun Watson, lost his season opener. And so as we go through the winners and losers, that's where I want to begin. Jeff Saturday, imagine that you're Deshaun Watson. You played Thursday night, so you have the afternoon free on Sunday. You want to see your old teammate DeAndre Hopkins and how it goes. What thoughts do you imagine are going through Deshaun's mind watching that game?
They just paid me $160 million, so I don't want to get out of Houston after they just traded away my guy. That's what he's thinking. He's thinking, thank God I got my money, because otherwise I couldn't sit here any longer. How ridiculous is this? You traded away, he's had 71 touchdowns since 2017. 25 came from Hopkins. That's the #1 tandem in the NFL. Sunday, he was 66% of the passing offense for the Cardinals. Are you kidding me? You're Deshaun Watson. We talked about it last week. You're talking about development of a quarterback. I think develop, man. I want to win games. You traded away my best chance to win games by sending Hopkins to Arizona. Just don't understand it. All you can just sit back in your hot tub, maybe with a cigar, and go, I got 160, because you definitely didn't help me win football games.
You know, Greg, let's talk about the impact this could have on Kyler Murray. We talked about the impact it might have on Deshaun Watson. Kyler Murray looked like a legitimate MVP candidate with that man on the field. How about the difference that makes in your mind, Greg McElroy?
No, it's just such a huge weapon to have. And I loved how they used him, too. I mean, Jeff referenced it. Yeah, 150-plus yards, but how about moving him around, finding targets? 16 targets overall for DeAndre Hopkins. And guys, I really think Kyler Murray's on the cusp of breaking out into a superstar, because if I'm a defensive coordinator, there are 2 quarterbacks that scare me to death. Patrick Mahomes, without question, scares me to death. So does Lamar Jackson, because of what he can do, not just with his arm, but with his legs as well. Guys, Kyler Murray, he's real similar with his ability to create big plays with his legs to a Lamar Jackson. So I think that's where he might be trending. And now with an elite wide receiver to rely on when things are getting difficult, man, I tell you what, the sky's the limit for what Arizona might do offensively this year.
Not only that, he doesn't get hit On his 12 rushes on Sunday,
Right.
he only got tackled on one of them. All the others either slid, went out of bounds, or scored. So he doesn't take big hits, which is a big deal for a guy who's not a big guy. Marcus, here's what frustrates me about it, is that when the problem is something everyone in the world could see coming, it's just a disgraceful mistake, and there's just no other way to paint that decision by the Texans. And whatever Deshaun's feelings on it are his business. But for all the rest of us watching it, the idea that you decided that's the guy we're not going to pay, and you traded away DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, it's inexcusable. And look at the impact it had on both teams this weekend.
Gee, it's a setup. It's got to be a setup, man. I mean, you know how I got to look away from the camera because the amount of sheer disgust that I have. You remember my response when they said they traded away DeAndre Hopkins. This league, since the beginning of time, has been about trying to get the best players on your team. On your team.
That's right.
And Bill O'Brien, for some reason, had the godforsaken idea that I'm gonna get a run game. I'm gonna get David Johnson. I'm gonna let 3 receivers work together as one, and we gonna win that way. And I'm gonna pay Deshaun Watson and set him up to keep him in Houston with nothing to show for trying to win a championship. Now, Deshaun Watson, to Jeff's point, can be happy about his 170, and this is a serious point. I watched Deshaun Watson in college when people say he wasn't good enough. I watched him get drafted late when I thought he was the best quarterback coming out the draft. He gets to Houston, has a tremendous amount of success, and then you trade away a guy that could take this to the next level, and you try to justify it to a young quarterback on the verge of being great. And now you send him to another young quarterback who Mac just said is on the verge of being great, where DeAndre Hopkins is going to help him catapult probably faster than Deshaun will because the weapons ain't in Houston. I know I'm going to give it back. But this is not football. This is not what this is against everything football is about. You gotta generate a possible generational talent at quarterback, and you have, nobody's questioning it. You had a generational talent at wide receiver. And you send him to a good team with a good quarterback with a chance to win, and you give yourself no shot. But they gonna tell me I can't be a general manager in the NFL.
Graziano, quick final thought, because seriously, I mean, what do you hear around the league? They're right. I love the disgust on the look of Jeff Saturday's face because it's personal for these guys. They get it. Dan Graziano, final thought. What are you hearing around the league about that?
I mean, look, the trade was shocking to a lot of people, to pretty much everybody when it happened, and it remains so. Look, this week did not make it look very good. There's no question about that, considering the way the two teams played and the way Murray targeted Hopkins. But to the initial question, Deshaun Watson's birthday was yesterday. Last week he got a $27 million signing bonus. He spent Sunday car shopping.
Okay, that's probably true. But you're much too reasonable, in my opinion, for the remainder of this conversation.
Week.
All right, we will take a quick break. And as we continue, we remind you that First Take follows us after some early rust. Big Ben looked good. Do Stephen A. and Max think his return makes the Steelers an AFC powerhouse? They will answer that on First Take. They're 5 minutes away right here on ESPN.